Hello everyone and welcome to this course presentation on history and modern languages. My name is Martin Ruhl. I'm a member of the Department of German, but I'm also a historian, trained as a historian, and I still do a lot of teaching for the Faculty of History. I'm giving this talk, however, primarily because I was the chair of this joint degree and helped to set it up 5 years ago. So without further ado, here is a basic introduction to the course, what its aims are, and how it works. History and Modern Languages, HML at Cambridge, is still a new course. There's a lot of buzz around it, there's a lot of interest to participate in it on both sides, on the history side and the modern languages side. We're still expanding the curriculum. We are constantly introducing new modules that are taught jointly and that really bridge that gap between the two disciplines, history and modern languages. If you have an interest in combining these two fields, these two disciplines, history and languages, then this course is for you. The aims of the course, its goals, were twofold, and they were quite pragmatic, quite specific in the beginning. We wanted students to be able to read literary texts, fictional texts, as well as historical documents in their original language. That was the first, most fundamental goal, perhaps. So much more is gained, so much more can be extracted from reading the works, for instance, of Dostoevsky here on the left in the original Russian. But we also wanted to raise a generation of students that would be able to read these works, let's say by Dostoevsky here on the left, in the context of their time. So in the context of the second half of 19th century Russia. At the same time, we wanted more historically minded students to have the ability to read their sources with the analytical, rhetorical, and linguistic skills that modern languages students would normally have. There were also larger aims, more general aims, perhaps even philosophical aims. We want students to have both the language skills and the historical awareness to better understand foreign cultures and society in Europe and beyond. This is very important, the beyond. We're not just looking at European culture and European history, we're really looking at global culture and global history. Second, we wanted our students, this new generation of HML students, to be immune to various forms of parochialism, sectarianism, dogmatism, meaning we wanted to broaden their horizons to really become citizens of the world, to see how other people live their lives, how other people lived their lives in the past. So the goal really of this course, this larger philosophical goal, is twofold. We want students to appreciate both the otherness and the interconnectedness of individuals, groups, nations across time and across space. Your teaching for this course, History and Modern Languages, takes place between and indeed into faculties, the Faculty of Modern Languages on the left, the Faculty of History and Seeley Building on the right. Both have excellent facilities. I've listed here some data on the library holdings. And of course, as a member of the university, you would have access to the university library with its 8 million books, maps, manuscripts, and so on. So in terms of research culture, we have a lot to offer for this course. Both faculties, modern languages on the one hand and history on the other hand, have been scored or ranked very highly in all the relevant assessments. You can see the data here. I don't want to sound like a used car salesman, but these are two very distinguished, two very highly ranked faculties, and we'll bring them together, and you can really draw on the resources, especially the personnel, the human resources of both in this course. After I've just said I don't want to sound like a used car salesman singing the praises of this course, by the way, I do genuinely believe that this is an outstandingly good course and you should go for it. If I could be a student again, I would probably take it. Having said all that, here are some student comments, student testimonials. These are from current HML students at Cambridge. Some of these are now in their third year, their year abroad, and they sent these in because we, people like myself, asked them for some comments on the course. And I'm not going to read these testimonials out to you. Just take a look, get a sense of what they have been saying. The different ways people live and have lived in the world. The idea that the two courses complement each other. And finally, the diversity of the course, the variety of it. Nikhil here, one of my own students, rightly draws attention to the fact that you get so much more out of the history of Russia. That's his field of interest, his field of work, by knowing the Russian language, and you get so much more out of studying Russian literature and culture by being familiar with Russian history. Now, the big question you'll be asking yourself at this particular moment in your career is this course for you? Is Cambridge HML the kind of degree that you want? Let's look at this question a bit more closely. You need to bring with you, obviously, an interest in history, as well as an interest in literature. Literature, on the modern languages side, will be not your bread and butter, but it will be a big part of the course. Having said that, on the modern languages side of things, you'll be studying so much more than literature. This will be a total immersion in the culture of the country with your language of choice. So the cinema, we have the cinema of Brazil here, art history on the left, Italian Renaissance, art history. Part of the course involves a trip to Florence, to the Uffizi, to see the works of the Renaissance masters. So this particular work would not be found in Florence, of course. One of my recent students has written a fascinating dissertation, or is writing a fascinating dissertation on football. In fact, Catalan football, Catalan identity and Barcelona football, dance, performance, music, propaganda, all of this is part of culture here in MML. But mainly, we want you to bring your cultural, literary interests to bear on your historical interests and vice versa. We want you to look at literary texts like Primo Levi's Se questo è un uomo, if this be a man. We want you to read texts like this in their historical context, what they can tell us about the Holocaust, the experience of the Holocaust, the meaning of the Holocaust. So literature will become for you an inlet into history, and you will bring to bear your historical knowledge to make more sense of the literary works you'll be looking at. We have now incorporated into the HML course a series of seminars in which teachers, both from history and modern languages, will discuss particular texts, like this here, Boule de Suif by Maupassant, in their historical context. So there will be a historical, in this case, of modern 19th century French history, which you can see on the right, the Franco-Prussian War, and a literary historian who was a specialist on Maupassant, discussing this particular text with you together, both as a literary artifact and as a historical document, meaning what is the documentary value of this literary text? What can we learn from it about the attitudes, the mentalité of the people at the time? Your knowledge of a particular language or culture will allow you to make so much more sense of particular philosophical texts, which you might be studying as part of the history modules on the history of political thought from Plato to the 21st century. It's often a word, a particular term, that really only makes sense in its particular language, that provides an inlet into the thought of a particular philosopher or theorist. For instance, Machiavelli's virtu doesn't mean virtue, it means something quite different. Or Nietzsche's term Übermensch, Superman, or Overman, even the translation of that is complicated, right? The Über there, the German preposition or prefix, is absolutely crucial. How do we interpret that? How do we make sense of this? Sartre's mauvaise foi, key term in his entire philosophy, also is not easily translatable. And getting a linguistic grip on these terms will allow you to make much better sense of the philosophies of these thinkers. As a student of HML, you will think of words as deeds, how ideas, philosophical concepts become ideologies, and how ideologies translate into political action. Here's a very nice visualization of this. Marxist theories, as laid out in the Communist Manifesto of 1848, being put into practice, you might say, by Lenin and the Red Guards launching the October Revolution of 1917 here on the right. It's important, in my view, to think of the legacies or implementations, if you want, of philosophical ideas, often European philosophical ideas, in a global context, in a world historical context. So you will be looking as HML students in the ways in which non-Western, in this case Asian societies, have read, have reinterpreted, and have put into practice ideas about popular sovereignty, democracy, equality, as laid out on the far left in Rousseau's Du Contrat Social, or in the middle, Marx's Communist Manifesto. Mao's Red Bible is a reinterpretation, to some extent, of the Communist Manifesto, which itself was a take on, a reworking of the ideas of popular sovereignty as laid out in Du Contrat Social. If you are interested in ideas, philosophical ideas, political ideas, for instance, here, the origins, the intellectual origins of feminism, then HML would be a very good choice for you, I think. You'd be able to read a key feminist text like Le Deuxième Sexe by Simone de Beauvoir in the original French. It's an entirely different read, I guarantee you. It's an entirely different reading experience, perusing it in the original language. And you would be looking at the ways in which this text influenced, shaped the feminist movement, not just in France, but across Europe and indeed across the world. On the other side of the Rhine, the German side, my side, you would be looking at a literary work such as All Quiet on the Western Front. You can see the title on the left of this slide. And you would look at this literary work as it is influenced by and influences Weimar culture, Weimar politics. It becomes an object of fierce political debate at the end of the Weimar Republic, in particular when it's turned into a film. You see a still from the film there in the middle, and where it becomes also a monument really of German pacifism. So again, the literary work read in its historical context. We, the teachers of the HML course, believe that in order to understand the political, social, economic history of Germany on the left, Spain in the middle, Russia on the right, you need to have a knowledge of German, Spanish, and Russian. You need to understand what Arbeiter means specifically in the German context, of what fascismo meant in Spain, of what the idea of Mother Russia, as shown there on the right, meant in the Russian cultural context. But to repeat, HML is not just about European culture and European history. It has a strong global component. So the anti-colonial, anti-European struggle is a big part of it. And again, we'd be looking at this struggle not just from a purely political historical angle, but also from a textual philosophical angle. We would be looking at the classic statement really of anti-colonialism, France Fanon's Les Damnés de la Terre, the wretched of the earth, one of the key texts really on our syllabus. So, how does the course work? How is HML structured at Cambridge? I'm going to give you a very brief outline. It combines the study of one foreign language with the study of history. Now, on the foreign language side, you can choose from German, Spanish, Russian, Italian, which you can study either post A-level or post IB higher level, or from scratch. French is only available post A-level, Portuguese only available from scratch. And you would combine your study of that one foreign language with the study of a vast array really of history modules. Your third year is your year abroad, which you can spend either working or studying or indeed teaching English as a foreign language, for instance, for the British Council. Again, your study of a particular language includes the study of culture, film, theater, art history, and so on. The study of history is not just political history or social history. It includes political philosophy. It includes world historical modules such as Latin American and African history. In year one of your course, you'd be taking 3 language modules, grammar, oral translation, and 1 modern languages module with a cultural focus. And you'd pair this with 2 history modules. It could be taken from either European, world history, political thought, or a combination of those. In year 2 of your HML course, you'd be taking 2 language models, translation and grammar, 1 modern languages module with a cultural focus. Again, could be film, could be philosophy, could be linguistics, could be a variety of things. You pair that with 1 history module, and then you can add either another history module or another ML module, depending on whether you find history or MML more to your liking at this point. So it's really up to you how you put the course together. Year 3, as I already said, is the year abroad. You can study, work, or teach, as I said, in a foreign country. Again, this would not necessarily have to be a European country like Germany, France, or Spain. A lot of our HML students this year have gone to Latin America. 1 has gone to Canada, 2 have gone to Africa, obviously where French or Portuguese or Spanish is spoken. While you're on your year abroad, you research and write a so-called YAP or Year Abroad project. It's a long dissertation of 8,000 words. Year 4, your final year of the HML course. You take 2 language modules, translation plus text and culture. You read a particular text and interpret it in the foreign language itself. You write on texts in your target language. You take 1 modern languages module with a cultural focus, 1 history module, and then again you have the choice to pick either another history or another modern languages module. These are the requirements for the HML course in no particular order. You can see that a typical offer is A star, AA. If you do the baccalaureate, it would be 40 to 42 points with 776 at higher level. Importantly, the A star is not tied to the foreign language. You can get the A star in another subject. Yeah? Now, if you choose to study French, for instance, which only comes as post-A level, we would expect you to have taken that language at A level and IB higher level, obviously. It's important also to remember that we're looking at your application in its totality. Right? We're looking at your entire profile, including personal statements, submitted written work, your school recommendations, and your performance at interview and in the admissions test. So your grades, though there is a minimum requirement, are not all decisive. For more information on the course, I recommend that you take a look at the website that I put on the final slide of this presentation. It offers a lot of information and clarifies most of the questions that you may still have. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, that you found it informative, and I very much hope that you will be applying to Cambridge to study history and modern languages. Thank you.